Hey everyone, it's Danny. Welcome to any new viewers. This is going to be a video, an update video on the greenhouse. On the 6x8 Harbor Freight greenhouse, I'm going to go into details about the little things that you just don't know you need to do until you run into the problem after you've already have the greenhouse built. I did a lot of online research and watched videos, and there's a lot of videos out there to show you how to build it and tips and tricks on how to build it easier. But what there isn't, there's not a video that I could find for tips and tricks to show you what you need to do to prevent problems that might arise. So that's what I'm gonna dab into in this video. So come along with me. So I'm gonna start on the outside of the greenhouse first and tell you some problems that I have ran into on the outside of the greenhouse. One major one is when you close this door, it is very cheaply made. And you can see the rubber backing for the seal has already broke. And I've only had this greenhouse up for about 4 months. And also, when you shut the door, there's a huge gap. And there's a gap at the bottom too. And that lets out a lot of warm air during the cold months. So once it starts getting cold, I'm going to put a bigger rubber backing on that to close in that gap all the way. So that's one issue that has, arisen. Another issue is you're gonna need a shade cloth, especially if you're growing orchids like I am. You're gonna need a shade cloth. This is a 50% shade cloth I got from Amazon for $19.99, and it's really nice because the whole shade cloth did cover most of the entire greenhouse, the 6x8. But what we ran into, there's nowhere to put the shade cloth on. There's nothing to connect it on. So what I went out and bought are these command hooks. You see that? And we really weren't sure how this was gonna hold up, but it has held up very well. Very well. We put command hooks at the bottom, and we put command hooks at the very top, and we just stretched it out. Now we're gonna have to replace the command hooks pretty often. You can see this one has gotten old and dried up and fell off. But that is the only one that has done that so far. And even with this 50% shade cloth, some of my orchids have still gotten sunburnt until they acclimated to receiving that much sun. But as you can see, the shade cloth was big enough to cover most of the greenhouse. Now with the shade cloth, you want to make sure, because this greenhouse has windows that go outward, you want to make sure that the top of it, you put the shade cloth loose enough that you can open your windows without tearing your shade cloth. Now let's go inside and I'll show you some problems that have arisen inside of the greenhouse. I'm going to start with the floor. As you can see, we put down peat gravel, I think it's called. But underneath that, once we leveled the ground, we didn't put down any type of tarp or that black stuff that keeps weeds out. And I really wish we would have, because about twice a month I have to come in here and I have to, you see all the weeds back there? I have to pull weeds out because they are growing up from under the rocks, if you can see those. And another problem that has arisen, let me move these orchids out of the way so you can see, is even though we put the greenhouse up on a frame and we dug it into the ground to make it level, we still have creatures burrowing holes underneath to come in and out. So that's something else to think about. I don't really know how to fix that. My husband will have to do that for me. I think it's a mouse that's doing that, or chipmunk. And when you get mice or chipmunks into your greenhouse, they like to burrow things and hide things in your orchids or plants, other plants. And whatever is coming in mine is taking birdseed from my front yard and burrowing it in my orchids, and it's growing now. So it's really important to keep those pests out the best that you can to prevent problems like that. Another issue I've had with this greenhouse is during the cold months. I do have a ceramic heater that is on its thermostat. It has a thermostat, so it kicks on when it gets too cold in here. But what that thermostat did was it zapped all the moisture out of my greenhouse, where I was having, my orchids were, the media was dry, and I mean dry, crispy dry, in a day and a half. So during the wintertime, you're gonna really want to, if you're heating in that type of way, you're gonna make sure you have some type of humidifier, some type of mister, to keep that moisture in the air, especially if you're growing orchids. So you don't want to, I was having to water every other day, and that's no fun when you have close to 200 plants. Another issue, which might sound silly, is during the hot months, which it is right now. If it is over 80 degrees outside, it's going to be close to 100 degrees in this greenhouse. Now, putting your shade cloth on the outside of your greenhouse helps keep it cool. Sometimes I will take the water hose. My friend Heath gave me this idea. I'll take the water hose and spray down the outside of the greenhouse, and that'll drop the greenhouse temperature by about 4 or 5 degrees for a while. The humidity stays pretty okay, as you can see. It's 71 outside right now, and this is the temperature in here, and that's the humidity in here. But look how hot it got when it was, I think it was like 87 out yesterday, and that's how hot it got in here today, or yesterday. Yeah. So during it, well, and I also have a fan, so it circulates that air. A lot of times I put that fan on the stand in front of the doorway, so it's bringing in that cooler air, and I have the windows open up there also. So that's what I do during the hot months. And I have to water the orchids once every 3 to 4 days, which is no big deal. That's totally fine with me. Issue is this Harbor Freight greenhouse. As you can see, there's nothing to attach anything on. Okay, there's nothing to attach anything on. So what I had my husband do was get military grade strength string, and he took this bolt out here and made it looser, and he tied the string up, tightened that bolt up as tight as he could, and hung me some string so I can hang stuff. And I also hang stuff from these bars right here, which I won't be able to do when it gets winter time, because when you do that, when you hang stuff from these bars, it pushes, can you see that? It pushes the plastic out and air gets in and out. So when I want to keep this greenhouse warm, I'm not going to be able to hang stuff right here, because it'll let my warm air out and cold air inside. So I'll hang those from the strings that my husband put up. So that's kind of an annoying thing, is not to have, you have to build your own contraptions to hang, if you have hanging orchids at all, your vandas or whatever. Another thing you're going to want to do to keep water out and, you know, your cool air in, warm air in, is you're going to want to take some type of sealant and seal every, what do you call it? every inch you can where this is. I know I didn't do too good of a job, you guys. It was a learning curve for me. But you're gonna wanna seal everything you can with that sealant. And it took a long time, but that has really helped. And I'm gonna even seal it better once the cold months arrive. I'm gonna tell you some things that I wish I would have done to make life a little easier. When I first got this greenhouse, when I first bought it, I didn't have this many orchids. I had less than 100 orchids. And I thought, oh, a 6x8 greenhouse will be plenty big enough. Well, let me tell you, I know I have room over there, but if I filled up all that room over there, I wouldn't have much space to move around or water. And I filled it pretty quick. So always get a greenhouse bigger than what you think you're gonna need, because it's gonna fill up quicker than you think it's gonna fill up. Because now that you have that dedicated greenhouse space, you're gonna fill it up with the plants that you love. Another thing that I wish I would have done sooner, and that I will be doing, is I'm going to be adding a second fan somewhere. A second and bigger fan. I will probably put it down at that end or down at that end, so that way I have a lot of air movement going back and forth for my orchids and helping keep it cooler in here, especially on the 90-degree days, because on the 90-degree days it gets over 100 degrees in here, and you don't want to come in your greenhouse when it's that hot. My greenhouse is in a part of my yard where it gets sun all day. All day, so be aware of where you're also putting your greenhouse on your property. So in conclusion, the Harbor Freight 6x8 greenhouse I bought for $249 on sale, and I am very happy with it. For $249, you can't beat the deal. The gravel costs maybe $30, my shelves cost $30 a piece. I think overall, you know, I am very happy with this purchase from Harbor Freight. And I'm happy I got it. So those are my little tips for once you have your greenhouse up to help prevent problems. I hope this helps. Happy growing, everyone. Till next time.